I'd like to start from something very simple but also very complicated, because yesterday also we talked about performance, acting, and I'd really like to start hearing from each one of you if you could sort of frame or describe what is good acting. What is good acting for you, or in your case, what is good performance, or if they are the same thing, you know? If you could sort of try to put that into words, because I think it would be very interesting to hear what you think. Michael, do you want to start?
Ja, hallo. Kann ich versuchen, ein bisschen an vielleicht ein, zwei Beispielen deutlich zu machen?
So we will try to say it in a few examples, one or two examples.
Also gutes Schauspiel ist, glaube ich, also zum guten Schauspiel gehört neben dem Handwerk.
So to the good acting, was gehört heißt belongs or beside of the craft.
Immer die Fähigkeit nachzufragen,
the ability to raise questions,
woher die Figur kommt,
where the character comes from,
was sie in dem Stück soll,
what she's about in the play,
und was ich persönlich erzählen will.
And to ask yourself, well, what do I want to tell personally to this character in the play?
Und das, was ich erzählen will, hängt wieder davon ab, was mich stört.
And what I want to tell, that depends what is.
Ja.
Yeah, depends on what I want to tell. It depends on what disturbs me, whatever in life, in the world, or yeah. But this is the energy where it comes from.
Also ich habe vor kurzem mit einem Schauspieler gearbeitet an der Zoogeschichte. Ich komme darauf, weil sie gerade angesprochen wurden.
Some time back he was working at the zoo story with an actor. He just says because we just talked about the zoo story.
Ist wahrscheinlich auch allgemein bekannt.
Edward Albee.
Und da gibt es die Figur des Lenny.
Nee.
Heißt der
Nein,
Lenny?
das ist mal ein Menschen.
Nee, bei Zoogeschichte. Wie heißt der?
No, it's,
Jimmy.
Nee, what's the name? With this Peter and Jerry.
Jerry erzählt eine Geschichte von einem Hund.
Jerry is telling a story about a dog. Yeah.
Er kommt jeden Tag nach der Arbeit nach Hause und begegnet im Hausflur einem Hund.
Yeah, every day he comes home and he's meeting a dog in the corridor in front of his flat.
Und er hat große Angst vor diesem Hund.
He's very afraid because of this dog.
Und der Hund kommt auf ihn zu.
The dog comes towards him.
Und er schafft es immer im letzten Moment, die Treppe hinauf in seine Wohnung zu verschwinden, ohne gebissen zu werden.
Yeah, but he manages it every time just to escape before he bites him and to enter his flat.
Das passiert ihm jeden Abend.
Every evening this happens.
Immer wenn er nach Hause kommt.
When he comes home.
Nie wenn er weggeht.
Never when he's leaving, only if he comes home.
Und er beschließt, den Hund sich zum Freund zu machen. Das beschreibt Jerry alles.
So, and he describes that he decides to make this dog to become his friend.
Und er holt Fleisch, Hotdogs.
Yeah, so he buys some hot dogs and some meat
und wirft sie ihm hin.
Throws it towards him. Gives it.
Und der Hund stürzt sich auf diese Hotdogs.
The dog is going on this hot dogs or this piece of meat. Yeah.
Frisst diese Hotdogs und macht dabei Geräusche wie beim Sex, beim sexuellen Akt.
He's eating it, he's making strange noises as if it would be whatever, like a sexual act. Yeah.
So wird es im Stück beschrieben.
That's how it is described in the play.
Aber immer wenn Jerry in letzter Minute die Treppe wieder hoch will, versucht der Hund ihn wieder zu schnappen und es gelingt ihm nicht.
But even if he gave him this meat, yeah, anytime he wants to go straight up to his flat, the dog tries to bite him still. Yeah.
Also beschließt Jerry, ihn zu töten.
So he decides to kill the dog.
Er holt sich Rattengift.
He's getting a gift, a poison, rat poison. Yeah.
Und füllt das Essen, Hotdogs, mit diesem Rattengift.
Fills the meat with this poison.
Und der Hund frisst.
And the dog is eating it.
Und ist eines Tages tatsächlich nicht mehr da.
And one day he's not there anymore. He's not in this corridor.
Und Jerry beginnt den Hund zu vermissen.
He starts to miss the dog.
Er wird traurig.
He becomes sad.
Unglücklich.
Yeah, sad.
Und er hofft, dass der Hund vielleicht doch noch am Leben ist.
He starts to hope that the dog might be still alive.
Eines Tages steht der Hund wieder da.
And one day the dog is back again.
Ich habe vergessen zu sagen, dass der Jerry auch immer darauf hingewiesen hat, dass der Hund ein irrigiertes Glied hatte.
I forgot to say that the Jerry in the play always said that the dog has an irrigated dick. Erected penis. Oh, this is a better word.
Und offene rote Wunden. So wird es beschrieben.
And open red wounds.
Also, so wird es im Stück beschrieben. Und eines Tages ist der Hund wieder da.
Yeah, one day the dog's back.
Und der Hund steht. Und Jerry geht die Treppe nach oben. Und der Hund schnappt nicht nach ihm. Das heißt, er lässt ihn in Ruhe.
So, and he's going up the stairs and the dog's standing there doing nothing. He lets him go.
Und ich habe mit dem Studenten lange geredet, weil wir am Anfang von Arbeiten immer überlegen, was willst du erzählen? Was hast du für ein Interesse?
So at the beginning he was talking a long time to the student he was working with because we talked a lot before we start also about what it's so important. What does he want to tell the student? Also, what does he want with the play? What is he interested in?
Das ist ein zentrales Interesse unserer Ausbildung.
It's the central interest of our education. That what is the interest of the student?
Weil alles Handwerk nichts hilft, wenn du nicht wirklich was zu erzählen hast.
Yes, because all craft is nothing. It's not necessary. It's nothing worse if you don't know what you personally want to tell.
Und er hat mir dann irgendwann, nachdem wir lange gesprochen haben über die Situation in der Welt, wohin sich die modernen Gesellschaften entwickeln, hat er mir irgendwann beschrieben.
After first they talked about the whole world and what our society is going to at the moment. What is it like?
Arnold, can you hold the microphone a bit closer to you?
Oh yeah. So after a long time, when that they were talking about really the world and where is our society going to, and
dann hat er mir beschrieben, dass dieser Hund sein Trieb ist.
And then he described that this dog is his trieb? Yeah, sexual desire.
Not only sexual.
Trieb. Thrive. That this dog is his thrive.
Das heißt, immer wenn er von der Arbeit nach Hause kam, hat sich dieser Trieb gemeldet.
So always when he came home from work, this what? Drive. This drive became awake. Yeah. Says, "Hi, I'm here."
Und das hat ihn gestört, weil er tagsüber damit beschäftigt war, sämtliche Triebe von sich abzutrennen.
This was
auch Wünsche.
Desires, and this was disturbing him because during the day he was always cutting off all his whatever desires, drives, all this. So I have to function in my job.
Und er hat gegen seine Triebe, gegen seine Instinkte, hat er ununterbrochen angekämpft.
So that for him, for this acting student, this what he was doing was fighting all the time against his desires, his drives, yeah, because they would have stopped him from doing his functioning in this work.
Und wenn man so eine Lesart hat, dann kommt man mit einem Schauspieler sehr weit.
If you have such a way of reading the story, you can reach very far in the work.
Okay.
Ich will noch was sagen. Heute rede ich. Dann sage ich morgen nicht so viel.
He wants to say something else, but today he wants to say it.
Um jetzt nochmal auf Menschen und Mäuse zurückzukommen.
Men and Mice, he wants to talk about Men and Mice.
Weil das heute auch besprochen wurde. Da gibt es Lenny.
There is Lenny in Men and Mice.
Da wurde heute ein bisschen besprochen, ich glaube, das kann auch helfen, wobei es sich komisch anhört, dass wir Gesunden die Behinderten beobachten.
He said that there we talked about watching disabled people. Even he says it sounded a bit strange, this observing this people through the mirror, but anyhow, this can help, yeah. Observing.
Für mich ist ein kluger Schauspieler der versucht herauszufinden, was an dem Lenny tatsächlich verrückt ist.
So an intelligent actor for him is if the actor tries to find out what is really crazy with this Lenny. What is it? Yeah, what is
seine Gutmütigkeit.
Abnormal. Yeah.
Seine Gutmütigkeit.
His goodwilling, having such a goodwill.
Seine Naivität.
Is Naivität?
Seine Liebe und Abhängigkeit von seinem Bruder.
Or his love and his dependence on his brother.
und seine Unfähigkeit, Druck auszuhalten.
Or that he's unable to keep pressure,
Und
to deal with pressure.
wenn ein Schauspieler darüber nachdenkt
So if an actor starts to think about this
und sich damit auseinandersetzt,
and is really working on this thing,
dann kann er auch noch Behinderte beobachten,
he can observe disabled people,
aber er wird eine ganz eigene Figur kreieren, die mit seinen Fragen zu tun haben.
but he will create his own character that has to do a lot with his own questions on to Lenny.
Und mit den Fragen vor allen Dingen auch an seinen Bruder, an die engste Bezugsperson.
And also in relationship to his brother, his closest person.
Den der Schauspieler nicht im persönlichen Leben haben muss, den Bruder, aber er hat ihn auf der Bühne.
So, from our point of view, he has not to have this brother in his personal life, but he has it on stage. So.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for
if you can pass the microphone back so I can like go there. Carmen Lara, what would you say of what is good acting for you? And I have to ask you to be short.
A good actor is someone who can activate social space and find out what is needed in that space in order for us to meet. And that research has to take place through experimentation and questioning, communication with other actors, with the people who inhabit that space, if it's a public space and not necessarily a black box. I could go on, but you need to hear from others.
So a good actor is someone who is able to communicate?
Not only, because it requires more than communication, it's about activating social space, which means raising the possibilities, raising the stakes that happen between us, the consequences of what happens between us, so that we become so aware of those consequences.
Isn't it already a potential in the space?
Yes.
Or is it something we have to bring into this?
It's both. It's a relationship. So it's not only a relationship between, let's say, me and the space, but the activation of the relationships that exist that I inherit. So it could be actually in the theater, if we want to stick to a black box, the history of making theater becomes a question.
But how would you adapt this kind of definition to film, for example?
I don't think it's that different, because with film you might not have live spaces that you're interacting with, but you have this amazing flexibility of editing and mise en scène that is another form of public space, a way of seeing, framing.
Would you say that then you create the virtual space, or you're still working with space or also with film?
I'm going to go too deep into theoretical material if I go too much into the idea of the virtual. Yeah. But I would just say that because we create frames when we edit with film, we create spaces, we can create ways of seeing and perspectives which indicate or represent relationships. You see me this way, you see the world this way, we should see each other this way. We could dream together in this way. It's not always about reality, right? It could be about dreaming.
Okay, great, interesting. I want to hear Bill. I have a dramaturgy here in my head. Yeah, can we get the mic?
Well, you know, Sanford Meisner was a very practical person, an actor. He had a definition of acting that we use in the New York studio. I've used all my life, which is that acting is the ability to live truthfully in the imaginary world. And the two key things there are truthful part and the other part in the imaginary world. And so, to me, a good actor is somebody who's really good at that. And you take a piece of material which you know, he knows, the audience knows, is a tissue of lies. You know, you're going to see Hamlet, the guy up there brooding around in the black suit is not really a prince of Denmark. You know? But if the actors are really good actors, they're able to take that fiction and play it out so it's so truthful and so real, I mean, truer than real life, as Ernest Hemingway said. that you forget all about the fact that it's all lies, and you begin to respond and relate to it and get involved in it as if it was something that was going on in real life.
So can we investigate a second this word live?
Pardon?
This word live.
Live, yes.
What does it mean to live?
Well,
What is part of this word?
well, you're living now, you could be dead.
Let's hope not. But yeah, thank you.
The key to living truthfully in the imaginary world for us is you could change one word in that definition and say that acting is the ability to do truthfully under imaginary circumstances, and the definition would be just as valid. So somebody who's a good actor, somebody who's good at that, they're able to do that. And
so doing is an important component of that live.
It's the equivalent of living.
So living is doing.
Is doing, yeah. Is action.
Okay, great.
You're always, any person who's alive is in action all the time. I mean, everybody sitting in this room is doing something. You know, they're thinking about lunch, or they're trying to understand what the hell I'm talking about, or, you know.
But can I just get a second more deep into this? Because when you say doing, is like
the simple, concrete actions that everybody does in their life.
How does relationship get into this doing? Because when you think about Meisner technique, you think a lot about relationship.
Yes, yes, yes. You know, a relationship is really what somebody means to you. You know, ask me if I've seen my Uncle Charlie lately.
Have you seen your little child? Or?
My uncle.
Your uncle?
My Uncle Charlie.
Uncle Charlie. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Did you see your Uncle Charlie, Bill?
What?
Did you see your Uncle Charlie lately, Bill?
I did. I saw him last week.
How was that?
Huh?
How was that?
I ran into him on the street. That's a relationship. Now ask me if I've seen my Uncle Joey.
Bill, did you see your Uncle Joey?
Shut up! Don't bring that up again.
Why?
I don't want to talk about it.
But why you don't want to talk about it?
Never mind.
You're overreacting, Bill.
Not if you knew my Uncle Joey. You know, if I say, the script tells you what the relationship is, and you, the actor, have to make that an alive thing, a live meaning for you. The script says, I don't like him in the play, right? Well, all I have to give myself some fact that means something to me, right? And attach it to him. And that is, I know that he's flirting with my wife. And I don't like it, and I don't like him. And that takes care of that.
Thank you.
You understand? It's that simple. Okay.
Thank you. Just keep the microphone on this side here. Leonard, what is good acting for you?
Well,
in the University of Michael Chekhov.
The University of Michael Chekhov? I don't know what that is. Acting is, well, you know, it's connected to this performance, it's connected to a play. So, in the first place, from my perspective, an actor is an artist. And the interpretation of the role is a piece of art that this person creates in the moment. And art that is effective is art that causes a fascination in the person who takes it in. So a good actor for me is someone who has this ability to present themselves and what they do as a fascination, so that the audience is drawn into what they're doing because they're fascinated by it. And without that, I don't want to look at it. If I'm not fascinated by what I'm looking at, I'm not going to go to it. So the art itself there is not going to be successfully executed.
Could you see that it would be like trying to give a magic soul to the doing he was talking about?
I don't know what it is. I mean, I think it's about you know, being surrounded in such a way with whatever you've created, so that the people who are looking at you cannot take their eyes off of you. They cannot, they're not going anyplace else but to you in the story you're telling, in the way that you're telling it. I mean, you know, you spoke about Hamlet. Well, Hamlet has to, his creation of that role, the actor doing that, has to do it in a way that is completely fascinating. And, you know, yes, of course, you know, living truthfully under imaginary circumstances is certainly a part of it, but you can do that and not be fascinating. And so it doesn't necessarily mean that this is a good actor just because they're successful at doing that.
That's a very important point that you're marking here, because there is a lot of acting, and we accept different level, but it's very little acting, and we are sort of wow, right? So how do you train, or how do you work on that gap between creating something believable or that we can accept or watch or enjoy, and then create something, as you say, artistic?
Well, it's about intention, ultimately. I mean, who's it for, and what are we doing it for? And so the actor who approaches their work with this idea that what I'm doing is a gift, an offering to the public, I think that's the first place, the first step towards this fascination, because it's an obligation on this actor or artist's part to present this thing in a fascinating way. So we're back to, for me, working on how it's going to be done. You know, how am I going to interpret Hamlet so that it is fascinating, and so that it is a gift, it is something that's taken in, and not just a selfish kind of expression of this role, or this ability to just be on the stage and do something, feel these things and express these things without the idea that it's given out.
Okay. Thank you. Can I hear Ed about this? What is good acting? And how does also transformation and all the things you talk about enter in this definition of what is good acting for you?
You know, it's being able to take a role and apply yourself to that role in an appropriate way that illuminates the material that you're working on, illuminates the relationships between you have with the other actors' characters in the play, creating a sense of behavior that's compelling to the audience, whoever's going to see the play. And that's, you know, simply, it's really that. Yeah. That's one way of putting it. Simply.
Simply. Okay, thank you. Before we hear you, I would like to finish with Hans, and I would like to get into some kind of deconstructing what we heard with you. Are you? So think a bit about it. Yeah, Hans.
I think it's not easy to answer that question, because I think there is so many different forms of whatever you call it, theater or stage work or performances, which needs very different kind of skills and different kind of attractions in a way, and ways of being and thinking in this situation. So it depends, you know, what kind of theater you like and what kind of performance you like. So one very good actor in one kind of theater art form is not a very good actor in another, I think.
But what is for Hans Henriksen, what is like the acting that?
Oh, there's very many different things. And it's very hard for me to say it's one thing, or it's very different from different.
So when you work, what is your focus? Is it according to the project, or do you have a sort of
of course, it should be
according to the process, but I'm very much linked to my own history and myself and all the things I've gone through in my
professional life and my life and all the things I have seen and what has made big impact on me from my point of view, or my childhood, whatever I've seen all through my life. So this is affecting on my view, but I want to, of course, move from that and try to understand everything and anything else.
And if I ask you for Tostonogov, how would he answer this question? What is good acting?
Well, Meyerhold said that his ideal actor was the actor who had capability to take very harsh and very theatrical forms and then live inside them freshly and newly every night. So that you combine the very strong form.
Aesthetic, or
aesthetic, and at the same time being
organic or alive in it.
That is what one of his formulations. He had a lot of the different ones, of course, too. I think with Tostonogov, this ability to be the improvisation was very important, of course, and he was a very deep psychological person. And I think the personality of the actor was very important for him, just the personality of the person who was an actor. So this, because in his theater, it was filled with big and very interesting actors' personality.
And don't you think that sometimes these personalities come in between the telling of the story? Or do you think you can use these personalities to make this telling of the story being more being stronger or more sort of magic, as it was also talked about?
Well, I think you see the performance,
and when you see the performance, you think about what you see, the performance, and not is this good or bad for the story, I think.
So yes, before we talk about Al Pacino, sometimes you see the movie, sometimes you see Al Pacino. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm talking about, personality, the relationship between the story and the character that comes out, or the personality that comes out stronger than the piece or the work.
Well, I'm not a big specialist on Al Pacino.
No,
but
you could talk about.
I suppose that Al Pacino, as everyone else, although he's very talented and deep and whatever, has his own cliches. And when you have seen 50 films with Al Pacino, you start I've seen it before, even with Al Pacino.
So what are we gonna do with an actor who works in the theater for 45 years and he's playing major roles after major roles after major roles? It's like that's what do you think that could be? It's a problem for that theater, for the art in that theater, or there's a way with the acting training to sort of keep this actor fresh, as you mentioned?
I don't think this has anything to do with personality, but it's hard for every artist to renew himself, always. I think Gob Squad will feel that in 10 years too. So everyone has that problem for a while, you see. So renew yourself, or being fresh, or try to be in the movement as an artist for your whole life. It's very few who manage to do that on a high level, on that high level that they have reached someday, like Picasso or something. It's very hard to do that.
Okay, thank you. Yes. So the question was, what is good acting? And I also, you can also say, yeah, just start from this question and then we get into it. Yeah.
It's got lots to say. Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to relate to this kind of acting because, of course, we do something very, very different. And I think we are very often exactly interested in in the falls and in the cracks between, you know, trying on something and something else shining through still. We often give the example of like a child in a nativity play, you know, who wears a sheep mask or something. And you see both. You see this sheep mask and you see the child struggling a little bit with this sheep mask. And there's a sort of double exposure happening. And that's exactly what we find, what we are fascinated by. We don't want to hide that double exposure and make it one, you know, make it kind of congruent, but rather the opposite of highlighting this struggle.
It feels to me that the big difference between what they said and what you do is very much around character. In the sense that, in a classical way, I mean, the character has to fail too, in an honest way, which is not prepared, which is not fixed, you know. When they were also talking about improvisation, being truthful and stuff. It's very much, I hear a lot here from the point of view of the character, so it involves becoming a character. While I think there's a very obvious difference when you perform, when you do your things, because as you say, we use our own names, and you never attempt to fail as characters, but you attempt to fail as artists performing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. I mean, but I was going to say that's these cracks and falls. That's why we are often very interested in bringing in, like, you know, the audience and casting the audience or casting people from the street, because there you then see this kind of double exposure. You see this person who's just been out with their shopping bags, and then all of a sudden they are in the space and speaking text from, you know, René Polish or something in our piece Pratersaga. But I think as a performer, of course, what you try to do, and I would agree with Camilla, that you try to kind of create a social space, and you try to be as open and as alert to the situation you find yourself in as possible. And of course, you kind of you develop tools to do that, and you develop a suitcase of things that you do in these situations. But I think the main thing is that you try to be in this moment, in the here and now, as much as you can, to, you know, to be able to engage and to react. And of course, you have to provide things, and you have to use your own material and your own kind of stories, whatever, to do that. But the main thing is that you stay open to the situation.
I think what is also really different about our approach is that we are not just the actor, in a sense. We're the actor, the director, the maker, the audience, if you see what I mean. So I think that, for example, if we were, we are all of those things. We are not one of it. So in the sense that if we were talking about what is a good actor, well, we're so far removed from just that thing, you know, because we're in some ways you could say that we are makers, maybe, I don't know. We never need to sort of define ourselves, but if we had to, maybe that we're makers and we're the creator of the space as well. You know, so we create the frame, we create the concept, we create the way of being within it, we create the relationship between the audience and us. And so in that whole process, it's you have a relationship to it, not only with the so we are all of those things. We think about how it, you know, the costume, the lighting, the sound. Every single one of those decisions is our decision. So it's not that we are told this is the part you're going to play, and here's the light you're going to stand in, and there's your costume. We've made all of those decisions. And so therefore it's a very, very different relationship, I think, maybe you have to the, I mean, I can't say, I'm not even sure it's so different, because there are probably also actors who do all of those things in their small theatres as well. But all I know is that it's very much what you're saying about this creating the whole event in a way. And I think one of the things that we really try to establish is that at some point within that, there is a point that I being viewed and you viewing, there is a thing where you could think, as the audience, that could be me. And because that person's then going, what would I say if I was it? Because sometimes that we invite the audience, another member of the audience in, as soon as you've done something like that, the audience is also going, oh, this is us too. So there's a blur that starts to happen between the audience and the performers, and who is being viewed changes. We're viewing them, they're viewing us, and there becomes a different exchange. So I think to try to fit it in the same whole as Al Pacino is so difficult, because it's sort of like, I also think with film, I mean, I go to the picture, I go to the cinema, and I think some actors are good and some aren't, you know, but it's a different world on how to comment on that, if you see what I mean. And sometimes I wonder, if you've got a pretty crappy actor, who was just, sorry, if you've got a really mediocre actor, but they kind of have something about them that you find you want to watch, and you get a really good director, and a really good cinematographer, and a really good script, that mediocre actor, who somehow we all want to watch, might seem brilliant. You know, I don't know, it's a whole other story, if you see, I think.
What do you think is the difference between, in this activating the audience, what do you think is the difference between, for example, me as an audience feeling empathy or recognizing some stuff of myself in some of the characters, or sort of projecting some of my things in this fictionary world? And what is the difference between that and being activated? So having an experience which is going to be my life experience of that day. What do you think is the difference? Why do you think this works?
I think there are massive similarities, but I think we just go about it a different way. I think there's room for both.
But I think there are. I think that whole, you know, the whole thing of, you know, like the empathetic, you know, thing that occurs between somebody who's doing a fantastically, you know, amazing role with a script, and you have an empathetic reaction with them, and this, you know, maybe that reaction is closer than we think, but it's just our craft is different to get that role, that thing.
Although I do think the difference is that we all know that it's happening here and now, and there's a kind of an acknowledgement of this situation happening here and now, and almost a negotiation about that as well, which is really happening and which is laid open. And although we both, like in our piece Room Service, for example, which happens in a hotel, and the audience watches it in a conference room, and then eventually we try and phone the audience, they're watching it on screen, and eventually people get invited into the room. And so there is a certain link happening between the audience and the performer side, and you enter a fiction together. Like, for example, I ask someone, could you pretend to be my boyfriend, who I miss a lot, or whatever? And, you know, we both then play knowing we are pretending to go into this fiction, but at the same time, something very real happens, because we really have a very close dance together.
Could you say because you are interacting for real?
Yes, I think for sure we are interacting for real.
So would be interaction a key word in your work, research? Interaction.
It's one of the key words, not the only one. Yes.
One of the key words.
Yeah, there's a social interaction happening.
And how do you see, for example, because what you're doing with theater in a way, you're giving to this live event is sort of a unique aspect that maybe other medium like TV or movies don't have. But that if you see the trend of new TV or new films, or that it's happening with internet, they're also trying a way to go in the direction of interaction. There is a huge, we're all going in this sort of river somehow.
Yeah, but I think there the art is missing. You know what I mean? There's like, it's, that's why I think you can't compare it with things like reality TV or things like that.
But also like, I'm thinking also about forms of entertainment that try to interact with you in an active way. This is developed also even commercials or many things on many levels, you know. But I was saying, what is that make this being in this live space? Is this what makes this sort of kind of interaction be an artistic interaction, or do you understand what I'm trying to ask? No.
Not completely.
I'm not 100% sure, but I think that it is something to do with the liveness as well. Of course, I think maybe there are some people who would be able to create something for TV or audio, but I haven't experienced it yet. But there is something that when I'm lying in bed in kitchen and I kiss a member of the audience, that's interaction. You know what I mean? We're both experiencing a whole gamut of emotions at that moment. That person has said, yes, I will kiss you. And just the other side of the screen, there's 250 people watching, and it's really big, and they've said yes, and there's that whole enormous amount of stuff that I'm feeling so grateful that they're prepared to submit, and I'm submitting too, and we're both really nervous, and shall we do a big kiss or not? And there's no time to talk about that, but you can feel their heartbeat, you can smell their breath, and that's pretty close, you know?
Okay, I think if nobody has anything to add, one thing, yes, a couple of things. So we hear these little comments, and then we can stop here today. But I think I've heard a lot this character or not character. So I think tomorrow we'll start from character, and what it is, if there is, and now we have to sort of be on time because there is another event that starts here at 12:30. Okay, so just a few comments. Okay, yeah.
There's one element that's very necessary in any actor to be a good actor, and that's actor's faith. Actors are ruled by their imagination, and they're very good actors, very sensitive to the suggestions of their imagination. You know, if you sent an ordinary person through a dark woods at night, you know, they'll walk along and they'll hear some creaking and say, well, that's the wind in the trees, or that's a little animal burrowing down for the night. And they'll come out the other side, they're in the same condition they went in it. Right? You send an actor into that dark woods, he's going to come out in hysterics. And that's a big difference between ordinary people and real actors.
So is this an actor a better person than ordinary people? That's what you're saying?
Is the actor better than the ordinary people? Good God, no. He's different.
Okay.
He's different.
Yeah. Hans.
Yeah, I just have a question for you.
Yeah, but not everybody's an actor.
Do you agree with that? No. But I just asked you, is it what?
Yeah, I want to hear you about this.
No, but I just, you told me about your sort of very good script, very good director, very good photographer, very bad actors, yes? And it's still interesting, didn't you? Yeah. So, is it possible to be a good or bad actor in those kind of things you are doing, or is it not important at all? Is the important thing here the sort of the in the game you are sort of supposing?
I don't know.
Or is the acting not interesting? You don't have to. Whoever can do it.
I don't know what acting is. Acting, I don't quite. You know, maybe we're getting into semantics here, but I'm not 100% sure what acting is. Is it pretending? I don't know. It's such a, you know, and so.
I just ask you.
Are you good at
I was
acting?
part of your group.
You could probably be brilliant. It
I could
depends
be
if you're not.
brilliant.
I don't know.
Everyone can.
Yeah.
No.
No,
No.
you cannot.
I don't know if everyone can.
Because
But
can
you
they
cannot.
no, but can they operate a camera at the same time? Can they, you know, the gamut of skills that you need to be able to operate a camera and be considering improvisation and be considering actually making the audience feel comfortable when you bring them in. So you've got to kind of be a bit, you know, be able to make them have a really good
Experience.
relationship with other people, that you can have good personal skills, you know, that you are you have interesting stories, that you're able, you know, if you've got all of those skills, yes, but when we're looking for people to collaborate with, we often have, there are 7 of us, and we often have about 2 or 3 other invited artists that we ask to work with us. And we find it hard because somebody might be brilliant on stage and have a fantastic, you know, commanding presence that we really love, but they are crap at talking to people. You know, and they make that, or they're really, there's something really great about them, but they're really arrogant, or this person's brilliant at talking to people, fantastic at using all the technology, but they can't, they freeze on improvising. So, of course, you know, it's great if you've also got...
What is interesting here is that all these elements and abilities that you are mentioning are supposedly abilities of a good actors. So this is it's a sort of we'll never get out of this discussion.
Yeah, no, and I really
that's
don't
the
want to be in opposition
that's the beauty of this discussion, which is not really, there's not really defined border, and that's why I want you to define what is good acting, because I think we gather together and we work and we all think we have the same sort of goal, but it's not like that. We have different goals, and that affects our doing, and that's very important to clarify.
I think that's really what you were saying. You know, a different way of theatre needs a different way of doing things, and you know, luckily there's enough people to be able to do all of them. You know, and they all have their own skill and their own craft, and we all know the magic that it is when we see it.
So let's say that we're going to finish this week with the challenge. You'll have to become great actors and perform a great character, and then we'll have to become great performers and create a live event. This is my tip for you. But I just want to say that what you say about the failing is very interesting, and there is a story of Kafka about rats. There's a short story, I can't remember now the title. But in this story there is this rat, this little girl, that becomes, the rats, they don't have art in this world. But there is this girl, she starts to sing, and she becomes a star. But she's not good. She's not any good at all. And so what makes her a star? And then there is all this digression about performing. And I think Kafka gives a great description of what's performing, because he says it's basically the fact that she's not as good. As, you know, she's not perfect, she's failing, she has flaws. That makes her interesting and a good performer. So that's a very, just when I hear you talking, I think a lot about this little short story. And so yeah. Anyway, I think it was a great day, and you can have a great lunch, and yeah.